Welcome back. We are looking at a paper that came out from TD Global Investment Solutions. I'm talking to Bill Priest, Co-Chief Investment Officer at TD Epoch, and Kevin Hebner, Global Investment Strategist at TD Epoch. And gentlemen, I'm going to reverse the order this time. And actually, Kevin, I'm going to start with you, and then Bill, I'll come to you in a second. We talked about the impact on labor, and it's massive. Not as frightening, I think, as perhaps people thought when they first feel about AI and labor. Kevin, I want to talk to you a little bit, though, about productivity. I mean, obviously, the things you mentioned in labor will, lead to more productivity right now. But you're looking at and believe that you can see an increase in productivity of by, 20% over the next 2 decades.
Yes, and just for backdrop, productivity is important because ultimately productivity is what drives wealth and prosperity, and what drives productivity in turn is technology. In particular, over the last 300 years. We've seen the increase in wealth, prosperity. It has been driven by technologies like the steam engine, electricity, IT, and now with AI. Early academic estimates suggest that AI, as it currently exists, will increase productivity by about 20% over the next 15 to 20 years. And they get at that by a number of ways. One is by looking at historical examples where this has happened, and the number ends up being quite similar to that. In fact, the trajectory for productivity post-electricity and post-IT are almost identical. But the view is that for about 60% of workers, we're going to see their productivity increase by 30%. And that gets us to a number close to 20%, which would be roughly 1 percentage point a year on top of the government's estimate of productivity growth, about 1.5. So that's very important. And there's a number of easy lifts. For example, customer service workers, early experiments showed that their productivity can go up by using a large language model by 35%. Software coders, it can go up by 50%. People who write for a living, their productivity can go up by 50 to 100%. So there's been a lot of early work on this, even if we are just in the first inning of rolling out AI, but a lot of work where we're going to see the productivity improvements in many different sectors. So it's really a broad effect. It's diffused across the economy.
Just a quick follow. You give an example in the paper as well, and mind you, this is I'm taking probably the more histrionic example, if you will. But coal sector, that when they added in, I think it was productivity of 832% to the point where there's no more people doing that work, albeit dangerous. But that rate of change can happen quite quickly. Is there concern that rate of change could just cause a huge dislocation?
Yeah, I'll do you one better on the history side. So, for example, from 1790, if we're having this conversation and I told you that technology is going to destroy 90% of jobs, some people would be terrorized, but that is what happened. And most of those jobs were in agriculture. And one consequence of the different technologies is people got different types of work. In most cases, they were better types of work, better paid, better on their bodies, and good in all sorts of ways. So I think you mentioned the speed of technology, and I think that is a concern because with the steam engine, it took about 80 years. With electricity, it took about 30 years. The internet was a bit faster. Our view is that AI will have 50% adoption within 15 years. So it is faster, and that means the dislocative impact will be more challenging for quite a few people. And there will have to be efforts by governments and companies to help people with that process and with the skills they need. And if you can think from 1980, when we had computers introduced, a lot of people didn't know how to use these, but within 2 to 3 decades, we had 80% of workers using computers as a core part of their job. That required a lot of training, and we're going to have something similar with AI, because in 15 to 20 years, 80% of people, AI is going to be an important part of your job, and there is going to be a training element required for that. It's also going to be a lot of people need just to go home, go into ChatGPT and just start playing with different prompts and seeing what happens and try to understand it. But we have to understand this technology. It's coming. It's going to affect the vast majority of us. And overall, it's going to be a very good thing.
It is. I play with the ChatGPT all the time. You should see the limericks that I write, songs too. But anyway, Bill, I want to come back to you. The fourth implication, I know that we were speaking about with this paper, as well as this winner takes most dynamic. I mean, AI is incredible, but it's not the small mom and pop place that's going to be developing it. These are big players that are going to be doing it, and they're the ones who will be reaping most of the benefit.
Yes, in many respects. Again, it gets back to this fundamental principle of substituting technology for labor and physical assets. To the extent you're a corporation with scale, the ability to do that is going to seriously enhance your profitability. And Kevin was alluding to this. When you look at what drives real growth, there's only two things that really matters. It's growth in your country's workforce and productivity. Well, the workforce in the developed world is going to be growing very, very slowly, less than 1%, probably closer to 50 basis points with the exception of Africa. So you're going to have to look for productivity in the form of the application of technology. That's actually going to accelerate, as Kevin alluded to. So from a country standpoint in the developed world, you can still potentially look at real GDP growth of somewhere maybe as much as 2%. Not as much as it used to be, but it's going to be there. Now, some people will be affected by this more than others. We have some companies we can talk about in that regard.
Yeah, we'll get to the countries, but it is interesting that that you're right. Like it's the companies that have the ability to switch over, to substitute, as you're talking about the AI and for the other inputs in there. Are we going to see, like, is this going to create fortitude around some of the big players that are launching AI, or are we going to see some titans fall, perhaps in the next little while?
It's probably too early to see some titans fall. I think it's very important to recognize that we are in a very different age. We call it the digital age. And there are 4 strategies that are going to be required for success. One of them is what the subject for the day is what's the business strategy for generative AI? But there's also, you need a business strategy for the coming energy transition. You need a business strategy for what we're experiencing in terms of deglobalization or think reshoring. And again, you've got the aging of society. How does this impact your ability to allocate capital inside a business? But right now, the subject of today is AI, and it's powerful. And it will be a very powerful influence.
All right, stay with us when we come back. We're back with Bill. We're back with Kevin. We're going to be talking about some specific names. And again, what does this mean for you as an investor? You're watching Money Talk, and we will be right back.